When you think of Donald Trump, you might picture the towering skyscrapers that bear his name or the electrifying moments of his presidency. But long before he took the political stage, Trump had a knack for spotting something that went beyond boardrooms and headlines: stories of everyday courage that deserved the spotlight. One such story came to his attention in the fall of 2013, a time when Buffalo, New York, was bracing for its early winter chill. It wasn't the kind of story that screamed for attention. It was subtle, quiet, but profoundly moving. On a nondescript November afternoon on a busy Buffalo overpass, a school bus driver named Darnell Barton was making his routine rounds. The streets were alive with activity. Car horns honked in the distance, leaves swirled. But something unusual caught his eye. Amid the constant motion of the city, there was a stillness. A young woman standing precariously close to the edge of the overpass, her body leaning forward as if teetering on a fragile balance between life and death. What would you do in that moment? Would you freeze, unsure of how to help, or would you act? Barton didn't hesitate. In that instant, his role as a bus driver faded away, replaced by something far more important: the role of a rescuer. The next few minutes would not only define Barton's life but also catch the attention of Donald Trump, who would turn this story of quiet bravery into something the entire nation would celebrate. And what Trump did in response wasn't just a token gesture. It was a reminder that acts of kindness, no matter how small or personal, have the power to inspire the world. But first, let's go back to that moment on the bridge where it all began. While most of us go through life hoping we'd rise to the occasion in a moment of crisis, few can predict how they'd truly respond. For Darnell Barton, that moment arrived on the overpass that cold November afternoon. The city bus was filled with its usual hum: teenagers chatting in the back, commuters lost in thought, and the rhythmic thrum of the engine. But as Barton neared the overpass, his trained eyes caught something that didn't belong. A young woman stood on the other side of the guardrail, her feet mere inches from the edge. Barton's pulse quickened. He had been driving buses for years and had seen his share of chaotic moments on the road, but this was different. This wasn't about maneuvering traffic or keeping his passengers calm. This was a life teetering on the brink, and he knew he had only seconds to act. He slowed the bus to a stop, shifting it into park. The mechanical hiss of the brakes cut through the usual noise, grabbing the attention of his passengers. Confused faces turned toward their driver, but Barton didn't have time to explain. He opened the doors and stepped out onto the cold pavement. "Miss, are you okay?" His voice was calm, deliberate. He knew not to startle her, but he also understood that she needed to hear someone cared. The woman didn't respond. Her gaze was fixed on the expanse below, as if the weight of her pain had silenced everything else. Barton took a step closer, then another. He spoke again, his words gentle but filled with resolve. "You're not alone. Let me help you." The wind whipped around them, the sound of distant cars fading into the background as this quiet standoff unfolded. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she turned toward him. Her eyes were filled with tears, but also something else, a glimmer of hope. Carefully, Barton reached out his hand. And then, in a moment that seemed to defy the chaos of the world around them, she took it. He helped her climb back over the guardrail, guiding her to safety as first responders arrived on the scene. For Barton, it was just an instinct, a natural response to seeing someone in need. But for that young woman, it was life-changing. And for the world, it was a reminder of the quiet heroes among us who act without hesitation, even when no one is watching. But in this case, someone was watching. Someone who would turn this incredible act of courage into a celebration of humanity. When Donald Trump heard about Barton's bravery, he knew this story deserved more than just a headline. It deserved recognition on a grand scale. As news of Darnell Barton's heroic act spread, it touched hearts across the nation. Local outlets covered the story first, and soon, national networks picked it up, highlighting Barton's quick thinking and bravery. But it wasn't just everyday citizens who were moved by the story. In his office high above the bustling streets of Manhattan, Donald Trump came across the story while scanning the day's headlines. Known for his sharp eye for talent and his deep appreciation for resilience, Trump was immediately struck by Barton's selflessness. To him, this wasn't just a story about a bus driver. It was about courage, humanity, and the ability to act decisively when it mattered most. Trump made a decision that day. He would ensure that Barton's bravery didn't go unnoticed. As someone who had always believed in recognizing exceptional acts, Trump felt compelled to bring Barton to New York City, not just to honor him but to share his story on a larger stage. "Get me his contact information," Trump reportedly told one of his assistants. Within days, the arrangements were made. Barton, humble and soft-spoken, was surprised when he received the invitation to meet Donald Trump at Trump Tower. For a man who had simply done what he felt was right, the idea of being celebrated in this way felt surreal. The meeting was set for late November with the grandeur of Trump Tower as the backdrop. Reporters gathered outside the iconic building, their cameras poised to capture the moment. Barton arrived with his family, nervous but excited, as they were ushered through the golden doors and into a world far removed from the streets of Buffalo. But what happened next was more than just a handshake and a pat on the back. Trump, known for his grand gestures, had something special planned, something that would leave Barton and his family speechless. As Darnell Barton stood there in the grand office of Trump Tower, surrounded by opulence and history, he couldn't quite believe what was happening. A simple bus driver from Buffalo, New York, who had acted on impulse to save a life, was now standing face to face with one of the most powerful men in the world. But Donald Trump, known for his larger-than-life persona, had always made it clear that true courage and resilience deserve recognition, no matter who you are or where you come from. Trump took a moment to acknowledge the remarkable bravery that had led to this meeting. "What you did that day," he said, his voice carrying a weight of admiration, "was the kind of act that inspires not just a city but a country. And people like you deserve more than just a thank you. You deserve to be celebrated." With those words, Trump moved toward his desk, where he reached for something that would take Barton completely by surprise. He picked up a plaque and handed it over. "Darnell," he said, "I want to officially present you with the Trump Award for Courage." The plaque was gleaming with gold accents, a symbol of recognition for a man who had acted on pure instinct to save a life. Barton, visibly humbled, took the plaque in his hands, unsure of how to respond. He hadn't acted that day for fame or reward. He had done it because it was the right thing to do. Yet here he was, holding a tangible reminder of how one simple act could ripple outward, touching the hearts of so many. But Trump wasn't finished. He looked at Barton with a knowing smile and said, "That's not all." As if he had been planning something even bigger, Trump walked toward a nearby table and placed something even more remarkable in front of Barton. It was an oversized check for $10,000. "This is for you," Trump continued. "I know you'll do something great with it. Keep making a difference." The room seemed to pause in that moment. What could be more extraordinary than a check for $10,000 handed over as a token of appreciation? For Barton, this was an overwhelming gesture, but it wasn't the sum of money that left a lasting impression. It was the recognition, the acknowledgement of the quiet strength and heroism that often go unnoticed in today's fast-paced world. But Trump's gesture didn't end there. As he handed the check over, he also offered Barton something else. A personal invitation. "I want you to come with me, Darnell," Trump said, "to one of my rallies. You've earned this." With that, Trump made sure that Barton knew just how special his actions were. In that moment, Darnell Barton became more than just a bus driver to the world. He was a symbol of what it means to be a hero, someone who had made a difference when it mattered most. And thanks to Donald Trump, his story didn't just stay in Buffalo. It spread far and wide, inspiring people everywhere to act with courage, compassion, and selflessness. But the next chapter of Barton's journey was about to unfold in an even more surprising way, one that would bring the recognition he never expected, and a chance to give back to others. After the meeting with Donald Trump, Darnell Barton's life began to shift in ways he never anticipated. The moment he stepped back onto that bus, still holding the $10,000 check, it was clear that something had fundamentally changed. But it wasn't the money that made the difference. It was the awareness, the understanding that his act of kindness had inspired a national conversation about the power of individual actions. The world had taken notice of a man who didn't hesitate in a moment of crisis, a man who showed that heroism can come from anyone, anywhere, even a bus driver from Buffalo. And as news outlets continued to cover his story, more opportunities began to open up for Barton. Invitations to speak at schools, motivational events, and even opportunities to mentor others flooded in. He was no longer just a bus driver. He had become a beacon of courage, someone whose story had lit a spark in the hearts of many. But despite the fame and recognition, Barton remained humble. He didn't let the limelight alter who he was or what he stood for. Instead, he used his newfound platform to give back. He became actively involved in mental health awareness campaigns, advocating for those who faced struggles that many couldn't see. "You don't know what someone is going through," Barton often said, "but a simple act of kindness can change everything." His collaboration with Donald Trump didn't stop with that one meeting. The two continued to work together on initiatives, from charity events to special recognition programs for everyday heroes. Barton's influence grew and his voice became one that millions admired, not because of his heroism on the overpass, but because of his consistency, his heart, and his willingness to help others, even when the spotlight was no longer on him. Years later, Darnell Barton's name would be mentioned in the same breath as some of the most impactful figures in America. But even as his story became legendary, he remained grounded in the values he held dear: courage, compassion, and community. His life was a living testament to the idea that no act of kindness is ever too small, and that we all have the potential to change lives when we choose to act with purpose and love. At the end of the day, Darnell Barton's journey is a powerful reminder that true heroes don't always wear capes or stand in front of crowds. Sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is to stand up in silence, extend a hand, and change the world one life at a time. Thank you for joining us to witness this incredible story of courage and humanity. If you were inspired by Darnell's actions and the powerful way Donald Trump helped amplify his story, share this video with those around you. Let's continue spreading the message that every act of kindness matters and every individual has the potential to make a profound impact. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more stories of incredible resilience, heroism, and the power of the human spirit. Together we can all make a difference. Stay strong, stay inspired.